Maybe our personalities are just programmed anomalies. Are we artificial intelligence? Hybrid with alien relatives? Are these deeper questions that I've been asking these last 5 years? So that you and I can find our way home. Yeah, what if all I was a really alien video game? Programmed out of songs they like to blow the smithereens. And what if you and me these artificial things, angels without wings, and a murder of crows? Yeah, a murder of crows. Are we the gamers? Are we the game? Are we the dreamers? Are we the dream? Are we the bell? Are we the ring? Am I a robot programmed to sing? All these deeper questions that have I been asking these last 5 years, so that you and I can find our way home. Come on, what if all I was a really alien video games? Programmed out of songs they like to blow the smithereens. What if you and me are these artificial things, angels without wings, and a murder of crows, and a murder of crows. cheesy finger. Face toucher, cheesy finger. Face toucher. If you touch me with your cheesy fingers, I'll snap them off. You're cheesier than baby Hasselhoff. If you touch my face, then I will boot you with the jaw. You cheesy finger, fucking cool. Johnny don't like no cheesy fingers. Johnny don't want no cheesy fingers. Johnny don't like no cheesy fingers. Johnny don't want no cheesy fingers. So stay away from me with your cheesy fucking hands. Before I slap your arm like rotten rubber band. Yeah! Cheesy finger. Face toucher. 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 Johnny don't want no cheesy fingers. Johnny don't want no cheesy fingers. Johnny don't like no cheesy fingers. Johnny don't want no cheesy fingers. So tell all your friends, this is the end of everything. Too late to repent. We'll pay with the blood and death. We will sacrifice, purify, rejoice in their sorrow and sing. We'll next gen, could not carry anymore. So tell all your friends. This is the end of everything. Too late to repent. The wicked will reap what they sow. We will sanctify, purify, rejoice in their sorrow and sing. Oh, hell next gen, could not carry anymore. Somebody call the next.
Dynamite and the hardest working man in showbiz, but very soon he may be known as the defendant. Grammy-winning soul singer James Brown is about to embark on a South American tour, but it's this tour that prompted his latest brush with the law. Brown says that he and his wife had an argument because she wasn't going on the tour with him. Adrian Brown and South Carolina police say that in the argument, it resulted, as a matter of fact, in Brown assaulting his wife with a lead pipe and firing a gun at a car that she was in. These are charges that Brown denies. He was released yesterday on $15,000 bond. He joins us from Atlanta to discuss the charges, and we welcome you, James Brown. How did all of this trouble begin?
Living in America. There's nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong at all. You're not in any difficulty, but you're out on bond.
No, I'm not.
Have all the charges been dropped?
Yeah, I'm out on love.
Oh, well, are you out on love or out of love? Which is it?
Out on love. Alone from night to night, you find me.
Now, James, this isn't the first time you and your wife have had a problem. Are the two of you going to be able to work this out?
Let's talk about some music.
You want to talk about music, and you don't want to talk about what happened?
No, it's all over.
Well, let's talk about your tour. When are you leaving?
We're leaving tomorrow.
And where are you going?
Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Now, your fans will have read all about this, James. Aren't you concerned about that?
No, Dankeschön. I'm concerned because there's nothing wrong.
And what are you going to say to your fans when they ask you some questions about it?
I'm going to say I feel good. Papa's got a brand new bag. It's a man's world.
Well, that's the second time we've heard that in 2 days. That's very interesting. Now, don't leave us, James. You stay right there.
I'm
We
not
have
gonna leave.
more
I
that
wanna
we
do
have to
something.
talk about. Well, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be
Hello,
doing
Ted.
on this tour.
What'd you say?
What are you going to be doing on this tour?
I'm going to be
Where
doing
you-
Papa's got a brand new bag, living in America. Sex machine, get up off of that thing. I feel good. Jam.
Now, I understand that you
I'm
have
real.
already, James, I have to ask you one serious question here. I understand you already have started divorce proceedings. Does that mean that you're now eligible?
Yes, I'm singing. I want to mingle.
You want to mingle.
Yeah.
Now, the women love you when you get out there. Why do you think that is?
What'd you say?
The women love you when you get out there.
Why is that, ladies?
Well, I'm asking you.
Huh? Because
Why
I
do you
look
think
good.
that is? You
I
look
smell
good.
good. I
Yes.
feel good.
And you sing good.
And make love good.
Oh. Well, there we are. We don't have to ask anybody else. We got that from the source. There you are. Now, you're involved in publishing a gospel magazine. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Second Coming. It's out of Augusta, Georgia, the anchor. Joseph P. Young is the editor, and James Brown is one of the advisors. And we're doing a fantastic job. The Second Coming. It features, on this week, I think we have the Pope and I believe the Williams brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And next week we're going to have Reverend Al Sharpton, I think, on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be doing a lot of good things, and hopefully we'll get Brother Ted Turner on the cover. Ted,
Well,
where you at?
James, we want to thank you for being with us today
Wait
and
a
giving
minute,
us
I
an
just got
opportunity.
here.
Oh, is there something more you want to say that we haven't
I want to
covered?
say a lot of things.
Okay,
I
go
love
ahead.
you. I love America. I love everybody.
Well,
I feel good.
It sounds to me as though you're not troubled by any of this at all.
This is a man's world.
Thanks for reminding us of that. Every once in a while, we forget.
Get up
but
off
we've
of that
remembered again. James, good luck on your tour. Thanks for being with us. I guess we're going to hear lots more.
Hasta luego.
Okay, also wait.
Your yellow skirts around your legs. The windows down, the music loud, our voices hoarse from screaming out the words we know by heart. What wasn't yours when you closed my door and let me take you home? But I won't apologize for speaking my mind. What's it mean that The glistening of your soft brown eyes snaps me back to life. With starvation, to me, is she gripping your heart inside her hand? Is there nothing left to say? 'Cause I can't fabricate a version of this that ends tragically. But it's never been the right time, you said. And yet here we are again and again. If you never come back home, I miss you. But for now, I'll tell you what. I'm leaving town. I'm leaving town. I'm leaving town. It's never been the right time, you said. Yet here we are again and again.
Greetings, comrades, and welcome to Best Korea TV News. Today is yet another awesome day here in Best Korea as the infamous Western comic book writer who calls himself the Gay Space Jesus announces new book The Adventures of Kim Il-sung in Best Korea.
The book is controversial in the West as using real undoctored photographs it details the true historical outcome of the Korean War, our total dominant victory over the imperialist American dogs. Writer Commie Mark, the creator of Not Daredevil, seen here on YouTube show Gay Space Communism, has come under fire from the bourgeoisie capitalists for daring to speak the truth about how awesome everything is here in Best Korea with this tell-all 30-plus page comic. And how the eternal leader and all-round nice guy Kim Il-sung is actually magic, and the rightful ruler of all of Korea. To celebrate such a momentous occasion in the history of Best Korea, almighty leader Kim Il-sung has moved the heavens and the earth to declare the month of February will be extended by 1 day.
To celebrate the genius and bravery demonstrated in honoring my grandfather and the mighty Kim dynasty, we the people of Best Korea herefore and henceforth recognize February the 29th as Commie Mark Day.
Street parties are expected throughout the streets of Pyongyang as the Indiegogo campaign launches at midnight February the 29th. The comic will be available in 2 formats in both standard US and the more traditional Korean manga style for the low price of just 10,800 North Korean won, $12 US. Check out the Indiegogo campaign for more details.
위대한 김정은 동지를 영도의 중심, 단결의 중심으로 높이 받들어 모시자.
위대한 김일성 조국 김정일 장군님의 나라를 김정은 동지 따라 만방에 빛내이자.
You're nobody till somebody loves you. You're nobody till somebody cares. You may be king, you may possess the world and its gold, but gold won't bring you happiness when you're growing old. The world still is the same, you'll never change it. As sure as the stars shine above, well, you're nobody till somebody loves you. So find yourself somebody to love. The world still is the same, you'll never change it. As sure as the stars shine above, well, you're nobody till somebody loves you. So find yourself somebody to love.
I'm dumb as shit. Hello, everybody.
There you go.
Oh man, that was so like my intro was so good. I practiced it.
Yeah, I was wondering if my audio was messed up because I'm like, I'm not hearing anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Comicsgate Commandos number 9. We're continuing where we left off here. No fucks given. Comicsgatium Eternum. Like I wanted to introduce here, Carbon Heart. Carbon Heart, how you doing today?
Good, man. Good to be here.
Good. You're the first commando to respect the call. Good job. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now I'd like to introduce our special guest for the evening, B.A. Turner. What's up, man? How you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for coming on, dude. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's just I'd like to get things off, a little like just nicety talk here. We'll go down the line here. Carbon Heart, how was your week? Anything new? Anything exciting?
Exciting. Well, May the 4th today. I stopped by a comic shop. It was a free comic book day. So, a little more activity than usual.
Yeah.
And what's that?
You see anything you liked?
Well, I picked up the new Transformers #1 under Image, which came out not too long ago. And, I'm hoping that it might pick up in value since it's like a reboot and it looks decent. So,
do you know who the artist is by any chance?
I did not actually look through it yet or memorize anything. I just picked it up and threw it in the bag.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, all right. BA, how's your week been? What's going on?
It's been good. Just busy as usual, but yesterday had me and my wife's wedding anniversary, so got away for the day and it was nice.
What's so what year is it now?
6.
Oh, great, dude. That's awesome. They say once you get past the 7 mark, you're like scot-free after that. Well, not scot-free, but it gets easier. That's awesome. Congratulations, dude. That's so sick.
Appreciate it.
Anything else going on this week that was cool?
No, not really. Just usual work and trying to sell books. So nothing too crazy.
Yeah, as those of you out here who don't know, is it BA you prefer to be called, or what do you prefer to be called?
Yeah, BA works. Yep.
Okay. BA here is the author here of Vigilante's Creed. This is the second one, not the first one. And you can see I'm not as far as I'd like to be. Let me hold that a certain way. I don't even know the camera's so. I'm not as far as I'd like to be. I just got to the part where he's healing, or I just finished that part anyway. It's very cool, dude. I like Incubus a lot. He's a cool villain.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. Actually, I'm gonna bring up your thing here. All right, so here we have on Fund My Comic, Vigilante's Creed. Let me show you guys the trailer here. Awesome. So, BA, I'm going to let you talk while I scroll through this here, if you want to.
Sounds good. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a hybrid campaign. It's a little bit different for CG, but it's 2 prose novels and then a mini comic. And it's about a gargoyle and a team of vigilantes fighting terror in Detroit. And the purpose of the mini comic is, unlike a lot of novels that can be a little bit less immersive, you don't have that visual aspect, and that can make it a little bit boring. Mine has this mini comic that's 15 pages of art that introduces all the major and supporting characters, and it introduces you to a lot of the major scenes so that you can play it out like a movie versus trying to figure out how the characters look and constantly trying to remember how you basically puzzled them together.
Oh no.
So
You guys.
there's book one, there's book two, and then there's also a duology. So it's a 2-in-1 version, which has a really nice detailed piece of art by Joe Ball on the front and back. And then there's 3 different variants for the mini comic. There's the Corey Barton cover. He did a majority of the interiors as well, and he did the covers for the book 1 and 2 novels. A variant by Skunk Artworks, and then the Joe Ball black and white version, which is just all the art in the original black and white versions.
Very nice indeed. I like that idea too. Like when you're writing something, you do recognize that it's hard sometimes for people to really put in their mind what your image is.
Mhm.
So to have it already drawn out for people is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love writing prose. I mean, I'm going to be working on a full comic issue here in the very near future, but part of me just loves being able to just go into such detail and just make such a layered narrative. Or when you're writing a comic, there's only so much that you can put into the dialogue and into the context, just because you're limited on page count due
Mhm.
to how expensive it is to make a comic. So yeah, I'd like to be able to provide everyone the best of both worlds, where you'll have the comics for obviously the visual, stimulation, and the folks that just love comics like all of us, and then the prose for the folks that want the really detailed story that will, give them days, if not weeks, of reading material.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you too. So I guess let's start from the beginning. What was it that inspired you to start writing this?
Well, it was a mixture of things. The idea for the story came to me about 15 years ago, when I actually got a full gargoyle chess piece on my tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had this really vivid dream that night of just this gargoyle overlooking Detroit, and it just kind of sat with me for many years. And then I was going through a real dark period of my life, going through a rough divorce and all that good stuff, and I just needed some sort of emotional outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And so one night, after some liquid encouragement, I sat down and just started kind of expanding on that idea, and just fell in love with the process, just fell in love with writing, and just the world building, and just the creation of all the other characters. It just naturally flowed. And then 5 years later, and 180,000 words later, I had these 2 novels. So
Very nice. And Carbon, you can jump in at any time if you want to ask a question or anything.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just to comment on the book, I think the art looks great. I'm intrigued by it. Probably I'll be back in it soon. There's been so many projects lately, and we're not rich, all of us here. So I've been trying to get as many books as possible that like I'm actually curious about, and this is one of them. So congrats
Thank you.
on it for sure.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I know the feeling. It's just every month there's so many campaigns to back. It's a lot of good stuff out there.
Mm-hmm. I realize now that I got the wrong thing. Like I wanted all of it, and I only got the second book. So I've got to make up for that pretty soon here. I get my bonus on the 15th. It'll all be good.
Nice.
That's when I get comics, is on the 15th. It's like, what do I have left? Okay. After paying bills and all that shit, you're like, what do I have left? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What you said about the gargoyle. Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
What you said earlier, BA, about the gargoyle reminded me. Have you ever seen the movie Tales from the Dark Side?
A long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, so it was based on the old TV show, but the movie was like a collection of a bunch of short stories, and there was one in particular about the gargoyle, that really stood out. And well, basically, it's like a guy was cursed by a gargoyle, and so he ends up meeting one, and it's really cool. And I won't give away the ending, so I recommend anyone who's listening to check it out, because I think you'll probably dig it.
You called it Tales of Darkness?
Tales from the Dark Side.
Tales from the Dark Side. Okay. Mr. Self-Destruct. Hello, Mr. Self-Destruct, and also hello, Johnny Scab. Mr. Self-Destruct says, in a world of glass, the faintest sound or the slightest movement can crack even that which appears strongest. The human heart is no exception to that rule. From your duology. Very nice. Very cool. You're being quoted already, dude. Legendary. Legendary.
Oh, that's awesome. That people are definitely connecting with some of the quotes, and like that's like the actual introduction page for the novel. And a lot of people would see the covers and think this is just like shoot 'em up, vigilante story, but it's a lot more than that. It's got a lot of emotional layers to it, and so people that are really big fans of like Image, action comics, but also just emotional novels, then you get the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah. Something that I noticed was I totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Let me get back to this here. I want to read. Can I read this in a voice here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Metaphysically bound to a divine grimoire as a result of sacrificing his life in exchange for another's, Slade Allen turns into a frightful gargoyle every night at the strike of midnight. By the way, I just remembered what I was thinking. I'll get to it after this. Under the alias Dread Knight, he utilizes his enhanced senses, strength, and uncanny ability to turn any part of his body to stone at will to wage war on Incubus and his super soldiers. Able to sense if one retains any remnants of humanity within them, Dread Knight cannot kill those who have a soul, but those who are soulless and without humanity aren't so fortunate. Dedicated to saving the citizens of Detroit from the suffering at the hands of Incubus, he lays his life on the line to end the reign of terror that is choking the life out of the city. Selfless and morally incorruptible, Dread Knight is the epitome of heroism. He is a hero unlike any other. Okay,
Nice.
so what I wanted to ask you was, so in this, I recognize that there was a team in this. It's not just Dread Knight. So what team books did you really take inspiration from, if any, for this?
I mean, Watchmen was definitely a big inspiration for me. And then, for me, it was more or less comic book movies. I mean, obviously the Trinity, right? Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. When it came to like Batman versus Superman, Justice League, things of that nature. So, I mean, really, those were the two main ones. I mean, I'm also a fan of the Avengers, of course, but for me, it was really, DC,
Yeah.
teams, Wildcats, things of that nature. Yeah.
Nice. It seems like obvious to ask, but the old show Gargoyles, was that something you were a big fan of?
Yeah, as a kid, I definitely was. I mean, growing up, especially when I became an adult, I was just like, man, how was that the only known, or one of the only known pieces of media out there with gargoyles? There was never any other comic book movies or even comics outside of that series. And then the only other movie was like I, Frankenstein, which had some really cool kind of gargoyle lore tied to it. But I always thought to myself, especially with the success of Hellboy and what an interesting character that is, like how did they not take advantage of gargoyles? There's so much supernatural and biblical lore that you can tie to them. And so when I had that dream, that just kind of that dream and then that initial feeling kind of just collided, and I was like, I need to make something that does some justice to this supernatural creature. And yeah, it just kind of grew from there.
So where for gargoyles and stuff, obviously they're mythological creatures. Where did your research come from? Like, what was your main source of research?
A big chunk of it was kind of expanding on the belief of why Catholics put gargoyles on the cathedrals, in Europe. And the idea there was to create a statue or a grotesque that was so intimidating that it could instill fear even in the most evil of creatures or spirits. So the idea of keeping evil out of the church or out from your soul. And that was part of my thinking for the tattoo, was that same kind of symbolism. And so I took that belief or that idea and then made it into an actual hero or vigilante that looks like he could be a demon or looks like he could be evil, but he uses fear, as his greatest weapon, essentially.
And that lends itself to, and if you guys have read it or if you're gonna read it, there's the media is not so fond of Dread Knight. Probably is due to the way he looks. People make a judgment call based on the way somebody looks, which is, that's the human species, baby.
Yep.
It's very cool.
So I have a question for you, BA.
Yep.
So far, I'm digging everything I'm seeing, so once again, kudos. I like the name Vigilante's Creed and also the name of the character Dread Knight. What made you ultimately decide upon the title Vigilante's Creed versus considering Dread Knight as a title? Like, because a lot of books, just have the main character's name as the title.
Yeah, I mean, initially I had a different title and it was just one big book, but it's kind of tough to sell 700-page novels, right, in typical novel size, because these are actually comic book size. They're much larger. And that's where I was like, you know what, I need to split these up and then I need to make it a series, because I was like, well, I can expand on the world beyond these two books, and I do have plans for some indirect spin-offs. So I'm like, let's come up with a series name. And I do have individual names for the books. But I was like, it's based around a team of vigilantes. So obviously that's easy for the vigilantes part. And then the Creed part, it ties into, the Christian lore that's in the book, and that they have this creed, right, to protect others and to save the city. So that's where I came up with Vigilante's Creed.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Very. So how far, like, would you say? So is this like one grand tale that you're telling in pieces then?
Essentially, the two novels do complete a story arc, so it does have a closing point essentially, but how it ends definitely leaves it open to do an indirect spin-off with some characters that are introduced at the end, where I could bring in the same ensemble into it. And that next part of the series is planned to be more of a, let's say, like Suicide Squad type group. However, they don't work for the government. They're actually vigilantes that are trying to fix the mistakes that the government has made, so clean up their mess essentially. So, there'll be even more characters to where, for example, if they have to accomplish a mission in Detroit, well, there's these guys to bring into the story again. So, yep.
So it branches out from just Detroit, and there's other people across the whole.
That's the goal.
Cool. That's very cool.
Yep. So yeah, that's the plan there. And then, in the very near future, I'm going to be doing full comic issues alongside the novels, so that people that want to experience the entire story can do it through the visual, type of medium.
Ooh, that's going to be a tough thing for you, I feel like, because you're going to have to then, I guess you're going to have to severely edit a lot of it to like cut it down to be, feasible for paying an artist.
Yep. Yeah. It will be difficult translating it into a comic, but what's nice is because there's so much to the story, and there's backstories to the grimoire itself that, turns him into a gargoyle. There's backstories, for all the characters in the books. It can give people the comfort that, hey, if the first issue funds, can immediately do the second issue, and so on and so forth, to where I could actually have a long-standing series, because that's what I would like to do. In the indie community, there's not a lot of really long-standing series. So a lot of people are jumping kind of from genre to genre or, different comics. And I'd like to have one that is so enthralling that people would like to have 10
Mm-hmm.
issues because there's enough story there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the thought there.
Enough nuance and depth too, I guess.
hmm And
Yeah.
then, if I eventually do 10 issues at 30 pages or something, then I can turn it into a big, thick Watchmen-like graphic novel.
Yeah.
That would be the dream, to have something like that. Because if I had the money, I would go right for that. Because I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love Watchmen. I love just how huge and captivating that story is. But yeah, that's where get enough issues, then you can edit it into that someday. So
Yeah. The old omnibus.
yep, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, I like those numbers too. Like those are nice,
hmm
solid numbers. 10 issues, 30
hmm
pages each, 300
Yep.
pages. The whole book.
hmm
And I agree about Watchmen. By the way, that's also even though now it's the name is thrown around so much by now, it's become like one of those
hmm
bands that you were into first, but now everybody like likes it. You know what
Yep.
I mean? So, but I still
Yeah.
like Watchmen. To me, it's quintessential. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it gets a bad rap just because of all the people that tried to emulate it, and the ones that tried to
Yeah.
emulate it in the wrong way, they really like tainted kind of the legacy of it. But the people that like us that experienced it before that and understand the intensity of that story, like we know how important it is. You just push aside all the BS about, oh well, it's created all this nihilism and the boys and all this, and it's like I, that's not on Alan Moore. He was the first to create a story like this, and
Mm-hmm.
he should be commended for it. But there's plenty of copycat Batmans and Spider-Mans, right? So
Yeah.
it's not about the nihilism or the realism. It's about the quality of what's actually being produced based on that influence. And I tied in realism in the sense of the events that happen in the book, the characteristics of the bad guys are things you see in everyday life, to where you can be like, I can relate to that. It's in Detroit. It's filled with corruption and bad politicians. I mean, that's legitimate modern day Detroit. But I have a team of pure heroes and then a pure villain, whereas obviously, Watchmen had every side of it. You had your true vigilantes, you had heroes, and then you had, the folks that are kind of in the middle, and then you had the pure villains. So there's a lot of crossover there. Mine's a little bit more black and white. However, there is some nuance to kind of the unique kind of hybrid no kill rule that Dread Knight has.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think that honestly, like Watchmen inspired me. Probably not to the same degree it inspired you guys, but certainly like the realistic look at superheroes,
hmm
particularly in the sense of like lethality of superpowers.
hmm
And like if they actually had superpowers, this is what would happen to people if like you face Dr. Manhattan, you just become like a red mist after he's done with you.
hmm
Um, and I like wanted to add that into it. Was like a combination of that idea and the nobody's safe idea of Game of Thrones
hmm
that I wanted to put in my book. So
Yep.
there's like even people that I like. There's like characters that I've shown off that like they're not like half the people live by the end of the story. And that's actually another thing I wanted to say to you as well was that so there's a lot of people out there right now who are like they want to go back to the old fashioned way of one issue, one story, and it's all wrapped up in one thing. And I think there's some people who can really do that really well. Like Graham Nolan is a great example of somebody who can tell a very enjoyable, satisfying story within one issue. Like he just came out with Ghost of Metacumba Key, which was good. I didn't like it as much as Joe Frankenstein, but there's more like cryptozoology, mythological stuff in Joe Frankenstein than there is in that, which probably made me lean towards that. But there's a lot of people out there who are saying, this is a complete story in one issue. And I just feel like like it was almost a knee-jerk reaction to the way comics had been in the industry, where they never really tell. I mean, probably pre-2015 they would tell good like 6 and 12 issue arcs, but now it just ends up being like this long drawn out thing where nothing ever really matters. And the worst part is when you get to the last fight, you know, the climactic battle of the whole 6 issues, it's like 2 splash pages of people like posed aggressively towards one another. And then they're like, yeah, the fight's over. And it's just like, oh my gosh, come on.
Yeah.
Oh no. We've got the Church of Cecil's Kindness, also known as Cock, saying, hail. Hello.
Hail.
Also, Johnny Scab says, I once knew a vigilante called Frank. He used to go around battering nonsense. He didn't have a costume, though, or persona. Just wore a bomber jacket and an English football shirt. He means soccer when he says football.
Yep.
But
That's pretty good. You sounded close to his voice.
I've been
there.
practicing, man. I love it. It's fun to do the British accent.
Yeah. But yeah, what you guys were saying about like story arcs and like plot devices and climaxes, it's hard, you know. By now, obviously, there's been so much media. You know, we're talking about almost a century of comic stories, and obviously, Comicsgate has this challenge of coming up with these new IPs, where you know having a new character that's unique, but at the same time catchy with a flashy name that's memorable. And then the same thing with the story arcs. It's like, obviously, you know, we're all going to be compared to something by now. You know, it's impossible. But you know, it's not necessarily a problem, because with Watchmen, for example, all of those not spin-offs, but the new IPs that pretty much took that nihilism and deconstructionism, that whole idea, a lot of them, they succeeded anyway because it works. You know, like The Authority was another example with the whole group of anti-heroes, and The Boys, and Jupiter's Legacy. I don't know if you guys saw that one. It's actually pretty good.
Isn't
by
that Mark
Millar.
Millar? Yeah. I started watching it, but I was like, I don't know. Sometimes I'll start watching something and I'll just, you know, I'll just be like, whatever. I have to be in a
the
certain
show
mood
was
to watch certain things.
The show was average, but the comic is actually really good.
Okay, I'll have to check it out then.
Yeah, comics
I
worth
did
checking
get
out.
what's it called? Big Game. That was his most recent one. Collected 5 issue. I got the collected 5 issue thing. That was it was really good, and especially when you consider like all of the different IPs he like tied into that one thing. There's one thing I didn't like about it, but if people haven't read it, and it's kind of new, so I don't want to say it, but it's kind of like the ending. You'll know what I'm talking about when you read it. But there was one character that he introduced, I think, in that story. His name is Nemesis, and he's just this dude in like a white costume. And you would think that just looking at him, you'd be like, okay, that's kind of a boring character design. You know, this guy's going to be kind of just your run-of-the-mill villain. But he's not. I don't know how to explain it, but you guys should read it. It's good. He's like the best character in that story anyway.
I'm looking at it right now.
Are you?
Yeah, it's this character in the white costume and the red cape.
Yes.
That looks like the design for the guy from Invincible. I forgot his name, like Omega or something like that.
The Superman stand-in. What's his name? Omni-Man.
Yeah, Omni-Man.
Yeah,
looks similar to that.
He looked to me like a whitewashed Batman almost. Where's the okay? So the boy with the iron fist, hail. He says, "Hail, Comicsgate Commandos! Hail, boy with the iron fist! How are you today?" It's a new guy. All right, let me. So just real quick, I'm gonna shamelessly self-promote my book. Which, by the way, folks, you can see here. See this? He's murdering me on the funding, but that's okay. I just want to.
I've been active a lot longer, so.
Yeah, that's very true.
Phenomenova. Well, you need to get on Reenie's stream. If you get on the stream with Reenie, I think that'll help you.
Yeah,
hopefully
that
she'll do
certainly
another.
would.
She usually does a group promotion thing every once in a while. So hopefully she'll do that again because that did help. Yeah.
It's nice of people to do that.
Mm-hmm.
This here is my comic magazine. It's called Phenomenon. Here's the trailer.
Nice.
The year is 1999. The Soviet Union has finally begun to rebuild from the devastating atomic war, a war that visited untold destruction upon Russia and the United States. A brilliant Soviet scientist has discovered the secret to creating superhumans, but the terrorist organization Lantern intends to steal the serum and use it for their own ends. So here's some interior pages here. Tomas Kavash is the artist here. We've got a few. This is the Lanterns infiltrating the Soviet research and development facility because the Soviets figured out a way to make people with superpowers, and they can't have that because then their revolution would kind of be short-lived. So they infiltrate the facility, and as you can see, they grab hold of the serum. But what happens next remains to be determined. They do, however, not fully succeed. They don't stop the Soviets from actually being successful with the first of the experiments to create superhumans. And this is the Blue Rose. Speaking of the Blue Rose, I'm going to flash something across the screen because I think it's pretty cool.
Nice.
That is a print off of a piece of work I have somebody doing, one of the Comicsgate Kings. I actually have two Comicsgate Kings doing things for me at the moment. And one of you guys already know about one of them. So we've got the A cover is the interior artist Tomas Kavash, and then the B cover here we have Rob Hunter, who is of Death Raider fame, which I will show after this. Well, he's of Marvel Comics fame, and Death Raider's his newest thing that he's coming out with that's gonna get really big very soon. As soon as people like look at it, I don't see what he needs to have. More people need to put into his campaign, but you can see the guys. Look at this stuff. It's beautiful. So yeah, we have two options for the covers. This beautiful one with the boss, the leader of the Lanterns, and one of the first superhumans. His name is Minotaur, and we have a better look at him down here on the shirts that I'm offering here. All of these shirts are double-sided. On one side, it has this picture, and on the other side, it has a message in Russian. And this one means the victory of communism is inevitable. It says, Победа коммунизма неизбежна. And then this one is the Lanterns, who are obviously the revolutionary group in the Soviet regime. And this one says, thus always to tyrants, which people will recognize as a Revolutionary War slogan. And it says, Takim образом всегда для тиранов. And by Revolutionary War, I mean ours against the British. So let's see. We got any new backers? Oh, wow.
Nice.
Wow. Thank you, guys. That's amazing.
Well done.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Very cool. Johnny Scab says, bloody communists destroying the world and making super soldiers as usual. You're right, Johnny. They're always pulling that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Johnny knows. Johnny, he understands. But yeah. So
Is communism inevitable? That line that you quoted there, it sounds like I'm starting to think that could be true, actually.
well, that is the funny thing, isn't it? There was one thing that Nikita Khrushchev, he was the general secretary during the 50s. What he said was, one day, something like this, I'm paraphrasing, one day America will wake up and it will be communist. And it's like, he's not wrong.
Well, it's ironic because I don't think it'll ever return in Russia, but there's a higher chance of it happening here than there.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? And Russia's still got, like, not in St. Petersburg. They've obliterated them in St. Petersburg, but in Moscow, they still have all of the Soviet regalia stuff still up.
Mhm.
Like, it's with the star and the hammer and the sickle. It's all there.
Yep.
Communism's amongst us. Instead of red flags, they're flying rainbows. You're right, Johnny. He's exactly right, because this is a classic Marxist tactic. It's called critical theory. And so it comes from, you have the critical race theory, which is one thing that we've experienced since, what was it, 2016? Is that when all the BLM stuff started? And then now critical theory extends to the other groups of disenfranchised or what's the word? Beat down, oppressed people. That's the word. That's the word they like to use. The oppressed. And that would be all the people who have certain sexual preferences, and they're all just kind of, they're essentially using these people and their emotional responses to get political power.
Yeah.
That's what Marxists do, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know, BA, if you knew this, but on Comicsgate Commandos, I think we've always pretty much talked shit on Marxism and communism. So that's one thing we've always done here.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're pretty open about sharing the things we're not happy about in the world, So
yeah,
yeah, that's a good thing.
You don't need to watch your mouth or anything. You don't need to pretend like it doesn't matter what you say on here, because you can't really offend me. Mutants, you can't really offend me. So
Yeah, likewise.
it doesn't, you can say whatever you want.
Well, this past week, I don't know if you guys saw. I mean, you guys probably keep up with the news and everything. But this past week, there have been, as you know, these surges and protests going on at college campuses, universities, and it's gotten pretty big. Like, we can't ignore it anymore. Like, at first, a lot of people just try to mind their own business and be like, oh well, I don't want to watch the news or get negative. But now it's down the street from everybody,
Yeah.
But this past week, for the first time, there were these stories of counter protesters. So groups of people waving American flags and chanting USA. And the meme about it is that they're calling them college bros.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the USA guys tend to be young males who are have a little more testosterone, for example. So they're calling them the college bros. And I'm happy to see that, because that's what needs to happen, dude. We can't be standing by having these people say death to America.
I would. Oh.
Uh-oh. You're frozen, Patrick. Yeah, every time we start to mention something, the CIA actually freezes the stream. I've noticed that happen.
That's funny.
There you are. You're back now, Patrick.
Sorry. Yeah, my internet's. I gotta find I gotta direct connect it. I'm so technologically inept. I shouldn't be, because I guess people say that I'm young enough not to be, but I've avoided social media and computers my whole life if I could, and then now I kind of have to do it, because no one's gonna know anything about your comic book if you're not on the internet. So I am woefully incompetent in those regards, and it'll be corrected one day. What did you guys say though? But when I bleeped out there.
Well, you were about to talk in response to the counter protests, chanting USA in retaliation.
Yeah, it's like this. I'm an American, and I don't like when I can see how my tax dollars are being used and I can see that America is suffering greatly from various different things, but everybody's like already suffering pretty badly financially. I'm not a big fan of sending money to any other country for war.
Mhm.
One, if I'm being brutally honest with people, I don't agree with either of the two wars that we're currently supporting. Like, I'm not on the side of technically either side. I will be honest and say I'm kind of more on Russia's side right now than Ukraine. And by kind of, I mean a lot, because I'm anti-globalist. And
Yep.
the whole thing with Ukraine is it's just a front for globalism. Now, as for the Israel-Palestine thing, it's like this. And this, people might not like this, but this is the way it is. I'm a Christian. I don't give two fucks about Islam or Judaism. I just don't. Like, I don't believe those religions. That's not the religion I believe. So your religious claims to this or any, like, I don't care. And I just don't think America should be involved with that while we've got people streaming in. You know what? That's actually a great thing I wanted to bring up too. Although we've got no British people on here. I just saw a headline about RIP London. Because I think the mayor got reelected and he's in favor of Sharia law. And they're like, well, how did this happen? And it's like, well, you imported a bunch of people who have no love for your religion. Well, they have no love for your culture, which actually stems from your religion, which means they have no love for your country. And so they came into your country, took advantage of your economic system, and now want to change the culture and the religion to suit their own needs and desires. And they're more numerous than you because you let them the fuck in. So,
Right.
according to your democracy, now Sharia law, well, not necessarily immediately, but that's, an approaching thing for Londoners, for people in England. They can see it. And I think that same
Yeah.
thing is happening in America. Go ahead.
Not to mention that all of those things that you just said are true, but just to amplify it, you have all of them taking to the streets and chanting in support of their religion and their culture, and there's no pushback. And it's a scary thing, to be honest, because when you see these videos in England, I've seen them of the streets being completely filled with migrants, that came in, and they're all chanting whatever saying it is that they have for Islam or for whatever their culture is, and there's no response to it. It looks like they actually are taking over, and that's why it's going to happen here in America if we don't also push back. It's like I compare it to, some people call wokeness like a virus because it spreads unless you actually nip it at the bud. Because if you let them continue to say, these things without any challenge, it's just going to continue to grow and grow.
Yeah. I think the one saving grace America might have is that they're importing a ton of Mexicans. And while, any percentage of the population isn't really necessarily as religious as the other, at least Mexicans, generally speaking, are Catholic, which some people may not like, but it's actually kind of better than if they were not a form of Christianity, at least for America. So
it's ironic. It's funny that you say that. That is a saving grace for sure.
And also Latino women are. So I'm single, man. I can say this shit. That is a saving grace. But I feel bad for Britain because they're just a tiny, tiny, tiny little island. And they were just trying to be nice. You know what I mean? That's all it came down to. They just wanted to be they wanted to be perceived as not racist and not being mean. And, oh, Mr. Self-Destruct, you and me both, brother. Especially when they have like the slight Russian accent. There is heavy Russian accent. He's not attractive on women. But when they have a slight Russian accent and they talk like this, it's like, oh my God.
It's true. I married one.
Oh, you did?
Nice.
There you
Good
go.
for
Nice.
you.
Yeah,
Very nice.
I was one of the rare ones that actually moved to Russia and then ended up finding someone while there. So
wait, you moved to Russia?
Yeah, I lived there back in 2017, 2018.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm gonna go through some comments real quick, and then we gotta. I love how you didn't mention that at all until just now. Johnny says about in regards to the. I don't know what the word I'm gonna use is. I could have said something much worse. I can smell it from my
Invasion.
window. Yeah, the invasion. There you go. Thank you. And Mr. Self-Destruct says mutant mind virus. Lots of Somalis with widescreen foreheads. No, I do not. No, actually, I just got shut down today by another woman in as many weeks. So it was 2 women in 2 weeks. Yeah, I've just been striking out left and right, dog. I came back from the COVID like 5-year nothing, and I was just like, yeah, let's get to business. And they're like, no, and I'm like, okay. Well,
Do you still have that date
back to
set up
writing my
for?
comic book.
I remember
No,
you said you have a
that's
date
what I'm
set up for
saying.
next
I
weekend.
got off work today and I was like, thank God, it's the weekend. I'm going to have a good time. Go to Comicsgate Commandos. Instantly, I got a text. Hey, it's not working out. Never mind. It's like, okay. You know what, though? I see this as a great victory because, like how you have like a percentage of like shit you're going to take before you're like, nah, I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she was already at 90 from saying one thing. And
Mm-hmm.
she said that she got the vaccine and didn't understand why I didn't. So I was like,
tough.
You're super attractive, but
You're gonna have some political.
yeah.
Well,
That's what I'm saying. If you're both on the same page about that, do your thing. If you want to put some unknown drug that's not actually a vaccine into your body, do your thing. But you can't like mixing people together like that is, it's only bound to end in problems.
That Tinder now shows that like you could check off vaccinated or unvaccinated on Tinder.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's a big thing apparently.
Huh. Hinge doesn't have that. Maybe I should check out Tinder. Hinge is like either like, again, I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just being honest, folks. Hinge is essentially like fat girls with dogs who like Margs and Adventures, or like really dumb bimbos who are just out to get laid by as many guys as they can, and they like make sure that you know that. And it's like, okay. Shot down in May. Exactly, dude. I told you what happened. I told you.
That's funny.
But anyway, okay, so back to you, BA. So you say you moved to Russia in 2017, is that what you did? So,
Yep.
All right, start from the very beginning. Do you speak Russian?
Just the basics, enough to survive there.
Okay, and then, so then go ahead and you just tell your tale. I'll shut up.
Yeah, I mean, it ties into, I was going through that dark period. When I started writing my book, I kind of just threw caution to the wind. I was like, I need to take a break from corporate world. And I was like, what, let's just do something kind of unique. And I was like, let's go overseas, but then let's take it a step further and just go somewhere that most people would never go.
Mm-hmm.
And most Americans would not go to Russia, usually because of perceptions that are quite false. And so I ended up getting a job there, just being an English teacher at a kindergarten, and
nice.
I absolutely loved it there. I mean, I went there not knowing the language really, not knowing a single person, just started hopping on trains and taking the metro, and would just spend all weekend just walking all over Moscow, just going to different bars and just people watching and just experiencing the culture. And I mean, within a matter of a few months, like, I mean, I started, looking to date, and it's just a completely different dating pool. It's insane. I mean, here, yeah, you have, maybe like 70% of the ones on like online dating apps are, they're just looking for one thing, in and out type thing. But if you're like looking for something serious, looking for, someone to have a family with, because I went there when I was about 30. So I was at that point where I'm like, I wanted to start having kids. And dude, the girls there are just, it was like,
you don't got to tell me.
It was like a flip flop of that. It was like, hey, 70% are like straight up, I'm looking to have a husband and have a kid. If you want anything else, like, you're going to get kicked in the balls, essentially. And so it was super refreshing because like you go on dates with girls and you're just like, wow, they're all really down to earth. They're religious, like their focus is on family and like real shit. And yeah, within a few months, I met my now wife, and I mean, moving over there was the best thing I could have ever have done because I mean, I had already been burned, you know, dating and getting married in the States, and I was just like, I can't imagine doing that again, or dating and just just
Mhm.
having kind of a strikeout after strikeout in terms of like the quality of person. And man, over there, it's just complete opposite. And
I've got a
you know,
question for you, but let me read
yeah.
something from Johnny first. Johnny has a question first. Hookers cheap in Russia. He says,
Couldn't
in
tell you.
London, they're cheap, but mostly on crack with no teeth. Johnny, do you say teeth like with a TH or an F? Put that in the chat for me. Are hookers cheap in Russia, BA?
Couldn't tell you.
Fair enough. My question that I had for you was so you said that they were religious.
Hmm.
What is the percentage would you say? Because I think that's a common thing that people think. They think, well, the Soviet Union, yada yada, everybody's atheist over there.
Mm-mm.
So what do you think the percentage is of the women that you met who were religious?
I mean, it was like 95% are Russian Orthodox. And that was the
Wow.
thing, even during, the times of communism, the general population was Russian Orthodox,
Hmm.
right? They just weren't allowed to go to
Yeah.
church. They weren't allowed to practice their faith, but it was still there. I mean, that country has always been Russian Orthodox. They had the monarchy. It's probably I mean, it's one of the most Christian countries on the planet.
I would
Yeah.
agree with
I mean,
you.
their
Yeah.
laws are actually tied to their religion. So they
People
did
hate
a,
hearing that, dude.
yeah,
Isn't
they
that
did a
weird? People
huge
hate hearing
180. Yeah,
that Russia like is actually decent, in any way.
mhm,
They hate hearing that.
exactly. I mean, as soon as, the Soviet Union fell, even though for the people it was really bad that it fell, it was handled very poorly, but
Hmm.
it was a result similar to Ukraine of U.S. influence getting in to the ears of Gorbachev and Yeltsin. You know, had they had a president like Putin at the time, he would have kept them together, but made it a democracy, made it, capitalistic. And, but yeah, they did a quick 180 where they're like, okay, our new constitution, our laws are going to be tied to the church. And it's like,
Hmm.
bravo.
How sick is that, dude?
Hmm.
Johnny Scab says, "TAFE." Thank you, Johnny. I was wondering if you did the ths like that. Um, you didn't say, was that a Cockney accent? You said what? Tell me what accent you have. I think you said that. Mr. Self-Destruct says, "Didn't Russia ban all gay pride parades for 100 years, or was that just Moscow?"
Oh no, that's banned. Yeah, so there, there's also a false perception of being gay is illegal there.
Mhm.
Not true at all. You see them walking around holding hands, but it's different because they're not trying to flaunt it. And part of that could be because of those laws, which I don't disagree with those laws.
Yeah.
Those parades should not happen because those parades always end up being distasteful and completely inappropriate for
Mhm.
children, like nudity and all that stuff.
And children
Even
are always brought to them.
even if it's straight people and they're having any sort of parade, there should not be nudity out in public.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it
it's
shouldn't
bad,
be.
man. Like some people aren't aware, like because they just don't pay attention. Because a lot of people obviously don't go to pride parades because you're not gay,
Right.
Hmm.
but they're flat out naked in the streets and even having sex in the streets. And I'm not even
Yeah,
exaggerating. Like out in
yeah,
public in broad daylight, having sex with each other. And it's
yeah.
like I said earlier, when you don't nip something at the bud, it gets worse. It gets worse and worse.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
So
anyway,
their idea there is, you're not allowed to have those, but I mean, they don't allow the marriage either, but they don't allow any literature or anything that can be exposed to kids to
Yeah.
be involved with that or tied to that, which again, they shouldn't have that foreign influence. And you got to respect the fact that they want their children being taught based on their religion, right? Tied into their religion, which they have every right to do that. And their
Hmm.
people support that. So it's definitely it was a unique experience compared to living in Germany and living here. And it reminded me of
Could you
living in
talk on that a little
1980s
bit? Like,
US.
what's the Germany and the U.S. being
Mhm.
different from Russia? How's that?
Well, Russia feels more like 1960s, 1970s US, right? In
Mm.
terms of, generally they're anti-war. They are very conservative, morally conservative,
So
and
many people would
Christian.
lose their minds when you said anti-war. They're like, "What do you mean they're anti-war?" Go ahead.
Yep. And but then you go to modern day, USA and modern day Germany. I mean, both of them, again, due to liberalism and, other things, again, once you give something an inch, they don't just take a mile. You know what I mean? They take 100 miles, and that's what our politicians have been allowing. That's what the EU has been allowing, and that's because they're profiting from it. Very few senators or, Congress people are actually willing to stand by their convictions. Maybe 2% of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Massey, and that's about it. So, where Russia there, and part of that is because of communism, but a big part is just from the monarchy. Like they just have very strict stances, and they're very aligned just as a culture. So they don't allow other cultures or other beliefs to kind of break them apart and cause all this division that we're seeing in the US. That's a result of being a melting pot. There are
Yeah.
ups, but there are also
Yeah.
downs, and the same thing has happened in Germany, in the EU. And when you have politicians, right, the EU is such a, a shit stain on the world because they have politicians in other countries making laws for your country, and you're like, why the hell is some
Yeah.
fuck from Ireland making a law for Germany? Why is somebody from Germany having influence on a law that's in Estonia, whereas at least in the Soviet Union and Russia, it's like they're only influencing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just crazy, the difference. And also people's fear in Germany to talk about their past, to talk about the things that liberalism is causing in the world is quite telling. Where Russians are very open with their beliefs and
Mm-hmm.
what they think, and some of America still is, but a good chunk of America is they're willing to speak out, but what they're talking about is nonsense, or it's based off of media propaganda.
Right.
So
Right. Here, real quick, I want to say, Johnny Scab says, Cockney mixed with Manchester. It's a mongrel accent, not accepted by Londoners or Manx. I love how they call him Manx. And I think maybe that's why I can do your accent well, is because I don't know the difference between a Manchester and a Cockney accent. So I just like hear certain things said on TV, and then I just like try to construct one that works. So maybe that's what I'm doing. I'm just unconscious, like we're on the same wavelength. That's what's going on. Mr. Self-Destruct says based Russia. And then he shares both of our campaigns. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Self-Destruct. You're a damn legend.
So
Johnny
BA,
said,
let me just. Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, actually, let me finish this
I,
out, and then I'll real
yeah.
quick. Sorry. In Russia, show suits are still the height of fashion. Did you say height or height? All right, and then Rivers of Blood. Actually, that's going to be the other book that's not related to Phenomenon that I'm going to come out with probably next year. All right, go ahead, Carbon Heart.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you the rest of your travels to Russia. So, you said you met your current wife there.
Mhm.
Did you get married there, or did she move back to the U.S. with you and then get married?
No, we ended up getting married there, which was really cool because
Ah.
you essentially have two weddings. You have a government wedding where you go to really fancy government building, and you get married. That's where the legal aspect of it happens. And then you'll go to like your hometown, or in my family's case, my wife's hometown, and then you have a family wedding, right? Family get together. And then I started having some health problems while I was there, which was just difficult to get figured out there. So you were like, well, maybe we'll go to the States. But the US, which it's ironic how difficult they make it to bring your legitimate wife to this country, but people can enter,
What's that?
from
She's
the South.
conservative and Christian? I don't think so.
So you're not allowed to bring them to the States and then go through the green card process. Like you can't bring them as a tourist, go through all the legal paperwork, and then be together. Your only option is to stay anywhere else in the world, do the entire process, and then after you get the green card, then you can come in the country. Well, because of all the BS between Russia and US, it was essentially impossible to get the green card while living in Russia. So we're like, well, we're not going to be split up. Like, screw that. So we're like, well, we'll go to Europe. And, we were looking at a couple different places, and the best job ended up being in Germany. And I'm like, well, they do have decent doctors there and technology, so we'll go there. And so we went there for a year and then got her green card throughout that process. And then after that, we came to the States, and now she's a citizen here as well. So
Nice.
Wow. That's really interesting, man.
yeah, it was a cool experience. But again, some people, I mean, look, you could go to a lot of other countries that may be easier to adapt, right, as an English speaker. But when you have cultures like that they have really strong beliefs, whether that's Russia, whether that's Belarus, Slovenia, Slovakia, any of those kind of Eastern Bloc countries, Serbia, like it can definitely change your life. And I mean, that's why you see a lot of folks, right, especially during war times, right, bringing wives back from Vietnam and the Philippines. It's really the same reason. The cultures over there are very just like, hey, family, no BS.
Yeah, it's traditional. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
It makes
And it's
sense.
hard.
Yo, Patrick, let's go. Let's take a trip to Russia.
Dude, I was just about to say, you're making me want to just fucking. I looked up the tickets the other day, though. I just wanted to take a visit, and because that's how I like to do. Like I've been to Moscow and Russia, except when I went to Moscow, I was it was how would I put it? I spent 3 weeks in St. Petersburg, which I think is the most beautiful city in the world. I love it, and I originally wrote the book. The whole grand book, right? I started it with St. Petersburg. But then I realized I couldn't tell that story without kind of explaining what the hell happened in this universe. So then I went to Moscow because, Moscow is the capital. Although I wish I'd spent more time like taking pictures and actually looking at Moscow. But when we were on the train to Moscow, I was like 17. You can just waltz into the store and get a bottle of vodka. So we did. I mean, at least at the time you could. So that's what we did. We walked in. We were like, hey, we want a bottle of vodka. And we got a bottle of vodka. And I drank half of it, and I had never drunk in my life before. Literally, I'd never drunk in my life. I'd had a beer. You know what I mean? So I was,
That was rough.
I went to the bathroom and like vomited all in between the like, those rubber mats that have like holes in them. I vomited
God.
all over that rubber mat, and it was horrible. And then this story will end soon, I promise. So then they wake us up, and I'm hungover as shit. I've never been hungover before. I enter the sunlight. I got this horrible hangover, this terrible headache. We get onto the metro, which is, I'm kicking myself in the ass now for all of this because I love, like, have you ever read Metro 2033 or any of those? Have you ever heard of that?
Yep.
Okay. Have you read those? You might be.
Just
Okay.
heard of it.
Okay. You should read them, dude. They're really good. I have them all 3 of them right here. 2033, 34, and 35. And all the video games are excellent as well. But so, the whole thing is based in the metro. So I'm kicking myself now that I didn't get to like actually witness the metro because I was too hungover. But I'm like on the pole here, and I'm like looking over at the chaperone, and I look at him and I'm like, dude, I'm going to pass out. And he's like, don't. And I just, and I fell into some random Russian woman's lap.
Oh, nice.
And when I woke up, I had like a bottle of water in my hand. And they were like, I was like, what happened? And they were like, well, when our stop came, this Russian woman started laughing and dragged you out and then reached into her purse and gave you a water bottle and went back on the train.
Nice.
Oh, my God. Oh, wait, here's Johnny here. He says, Pat, you need to come to England. I'll take you out with me and Bjorn on a lash. Show you some real pubs and nightlife. It'll be real life-changing. What does on the lash mean? I know that's something you guys say, but I don't I haven't figured out by context what it means. You too, Carbon. More the merrier. Oh yeah, for sure, dude. For sure.
Yeah, on the way to Russia, we'll stop by London.
Yeah, that'd be amazing, dude. I'd love to go to London. That'd be. I mean, yeah, we could like, I could put a mask on. You've already got one. Then we could go fight migrants in the streets. That'd be fun. As a joke, right? That's not real. That's not. We're not going to do that. So.
Yeah, in Minecraft.
Right, in Minecraft. That's right.
Yeah, the video game.
He says, on the lash means going out and getting drunk. On the piss. Oh, okay. On the piss. Okay. It's like when you're piss drunk. I see. We say getting slammed.
Plastered.
Plastered, yeah. No, that's good. I want to do that. And like once my comic book becomes a multi-million-dollar success, that's gonna be the first thing I'm gonna do. But yeah, dude. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention to you, after what you had said about the women being more religious and that the general society is more religious. I think maybe that's like a pendulum effect. You live so long under the boot heel of atheist oppression, like just horrible statist religion. The religion of the state. That's what I call it. Some people some people think that atheism is not a religion. I don't agree with those people. I think that atheism requires just as much faith in or belief in something that you can't prove as does anything else, except we've been convinced by atheist thinkers for the past 200 years that there's no proof at all for religion. I'm not even talking about Christianity. I'm talking about religion in general. But then the question comes in, what is proof? Anyway, I'm getting off topic. The point is that I think it's kind of a pendulum effect from living so long under that now they're kind of moving back towards Christianity. And I was wondering, do you think that that could happen to America in the sense of like, No, I mean, do you think that could happen to America? And if so, do you think it could happen with or without conflict, revolution, that kind of thing?
And this is a depressing outlook, but I don't see America getting back to traditionalism.
I feel similarly.
Yeah, I mean, and if a revolution happened, it would take, I feel like, several decades for that healing and then going back to traditionalism to happen. Because the thing with Russia is they were traditional and religious prior to communism, right? They were one unified country. We're not there right now. So for them, it didn't matter when communism ended. I mean, what that happened from, was it like 1914 or something around that to 1993. So, I mean, you still had, influence from pre-communism within your family, and it could have easily been passed down, even though they couldn't practice, many things. Where here, I mean, we're already so divided, and there's so many different cultures that I think it would take a long, long time. And the other thing too is, those cultures over there they've always just been more traditional, and they have a different outlook when it comes to money and family. It's been so long since our country's been like that. I feel like it's been 30 years since, we were kids, in the 90s, early 2000s. Oof. But it's progressed so quickly, the erosion of that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're.
Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, the changes that have been happening in the U.S. is on the path towards communism or a bigger conflict occurring. And not to be negative, because actually I myself am religious and spiritual, so I consider myself an optimist. I try to look at the positive, but you look at the laws that have been getting passed in the U.S., like just in the last 20 years, they're becoming socialist. They're becoming more debauched in terms of culture. And I think it's heading towards a big conflict where things are going to get worse socially. And I think only after that, people will learn their lesson that the U.S. was founded based on Christianity, and that's why it used to be better.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, the law essentially is best when it is tied to Christianity. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. Like that's the birth of moralism, you know, and righteousness and being on the path towards a better society. And when you start to cut that away from the law is when things get worse. And I think it'll get so bad to the point where people will start to admit, okay, you know, maybe let's start reverting back to traditional American values, you know?
Yeah. Well, this is why I'm like, the way I see it is, and you guys can, you know, chime in on this if you think this is true or not. It comes back to that atheism, which is like, it's kind of like a shield for statists, for people who like the government, in the sense that they refuse the idea that a God could exist, and they're basing their belief on that, and everything and every decision made after that on logic and reason and science. That's the most you know, faulty one, to base everything on science, which changes drastically as the days go by. I don't have to remind some of these viewers here how people who had opinions like us back in 2019 about COVID, about it being made in a lab, about it being something that wasn't actually a vaccine, about yada, 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 about it not being safe for you, myocarditis, ring any bells? That's not real because that's not the science. And yet now they say that is the science. So it's just like, it gets to a point where it's like these things that people will then rely upon because they're not relying upon a religion, are faulty things to rely upon. But what I see it as, like, is paganism, like a resurgence of paganism under a different guise. Just as what we live in now in America is neo-feudalism. It's feudalism under a different guise. I don't own my land. The government owns the land. I don't own my car. The government owns my car. I pay money to the government to buy the car. I pay money to the government to sell the car. When I die, I'm going to be taxed by the government for dying, for my shit. Like, we don't really own anything here because we all owe it to the state, essentially.
The banks, which is
right,
tied to the state, yeah.
Right, which gets into a bigger... Let's not start on the banks yet. We'll talk about the banks later.
There's a lot of tangents we can go on.
Oh yeah, we really could.
But can I respond to something you just said earlier, Pat, about atheism? And COVID was such a big eye-opener, obviously, for many people and the whole world, because it proves, like what you just said, is that, you know, believe the science.
Real quick, I'm sorry. I knew a bloke who had his COVID jab and his balls swelled up to the size of coconuts. He loved it. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, but in a nutshell, basically, like, believe the science is not solid ground, because obviously that changed every year. Like, for the past 5 years, the science changed. And it's so funny because in 2020, I was a person who was skeptical of everything. And I was shocked to find that I was the only person in my family and in my social circle that was like that. That was like, guys, you need to take a step back and think critically here and not believe everything you hear, you know? And funnily, strangely enough, flash forward 2-3 years later, every year, all of my skepticisms were found to be true. It's like, oh yeah, like you just said, the vaccine, we had vaccine injuries, myocarditis. Even the damn card, the passport card. At first, that was considered a conspiracy theory. Everyone was like, "Oh, you're being paranoid that they're gonna fire you." Oh, lo and behold, it happened, and people got fired. And by the way, nobody's talking about it anymore.
Yeah.
Remember, like, there was that campaign a year ago where they asked everyone to move on and forgive. They're like, "Oh, let's move past it.
Yeah.
Don't hold a grudge." It's like, you piece of shit. You fired me because I didn't get the damn vaccine. But now you want me to forgive you.
Right. I'll forgive you when you put yourself voluntarily in jail for the crimes against humanity you committed by forcing everybody to get this fucking vaccine.
Or
I'm
give
gonna stop
money
saying
to
that word.
all.
This drug.
Yeah, pay back all the small businesses that had to shut down, that went out of business because you forced them to close during this effing pandemic. You know what I mean? That's the bailout that the government should have done. Anyway, I'll stop there.
No, you're good. You're good. I see it all as a direct response from when you abandon the religion that you started your government on. This is what happens. Well, if you've got a good religion, I think you can tell by looking at societies and civilizations and countries. Like, okay, well, so I'm going to be fair here, and I'm going to say that the United States has been infiltrated by people who are not Christian for at least since the 40s, is what I would say. They've been engaging in the military-industrial complex in combination with essentially the international banking community has been engaging in essentially proxy wars that they label as some propaganda reason why we need to go in and yada yada to save people or democracy or some shit. Just as the same it is with Ukraine right now. But then utilizing the taxpayer dollars of America to essentially exert their will upon the world. But I think it does come from the leaders of the country abandoning the religion the country was founded on. And you saw what happened in Russia. We've got a great example of what happened. And now we're here in America where they did it a little bit better. The Bolsheviks kind of just like took power and then kept it for a bit. But it was untenable because of the way that they took power. They didn't convince the hearts and minds of the people necessarily, at least not enough of them. They kind of just took it. And so when we have in America this kind of propaganda campaign that's been running for the past 70 years since the sexual revolution, at least, to destroy our culture. Now you look around and you see that we're maybe in like the 18th percentile of people, or maybe that's the wrong way to, maybe it's the 72nd percentile of people. My point is there's like less than a fifth of people in America who think like we do in this regard, I would say.
Well, that's hard to say, to be honest, because I think a lot of Americans stay quiet about what they truly think. You know, technically, 50% of America is still actually Republican. You know, and so I think there's more conservatives than we're led to believe because they stay quiet.
That's the question, Carbon Heart. That's the real question. When the statist pigs come to you and they say, do this or else this, and the conservatives remain quiet, and so let the totalitarians take over, are they really like, you know what I mean? The way I look at it is there's free men and then there's everybody else. And there's a lot more of everybody else than there are of free men, people who are unwilling to be ruled.
Well, I agree. That's a smaller percentage of people. The people who are willing to actually speak up and defend their rights.
Well, the other problem too is American, conservatism has been bastardized to where, you want to believe that, people that are Republican or deem themselves conservative are going to vote for and fight for what's best for our country. But we know that it's actually fractioned quite a bit because maybe 40% of those conservatives are brainwashed to the point where they'll support any war across the world, which then tanks our, stock market, steals our tax dollars, pumps money into the industrial military complex, which is not good. So, yeah, maybe they're fighting against abortion and some other, conservative ideals, but they're really missing the boat on one of the most, important issues. But then you also have ones that really toe the line on things like abortion and other things to where it's like they're not really a conservative. You're a conservative by title, but you're not like a Russian conservative, like someone that's like, no, this is my belief. You're not changing my mind. I'm going to vote based on this. End of story. Here it's like, oh, well, maybe I should kind of go with the crowd here. Oh, well, they're also not smart enough to realize that the politicians, whether or not they have an R or a D next to their name, it doesn't matter. Most of them are on the same team, and that's the team of exploiting the healthcare industry, exploiting the military industrial complex because it's lining their pockets. They're voting in a way to stay in a position of power, not to represent the people of their state, where other countries, there aren't states, right? There's one, government, there's one Senate or Duma or whatnot, and, they're actually voting based on their religion, and they know if they go against the ideology of the country or the beliefs of the country, they're going to get really called out and they're not going to stay in that position. So people, I think, here, too many conservatives are gullible, right? They fell for the Crenshaws, they fell for the McCains, they fell for, right, the Romneys and the Bushes and all of these, and even Trump to an extent. I'm kind of middle of the line in regards to Trump. Like, he's done
Yeah.
great things, but he really messed up when it came to COVID,
Yeah.
and he's also horrible at picking his cabinet and those that he surrounds himself with, which means he himself is gullible because he believes, oh, well, this guy's a conservative general. He's a good guy. Wait, why is he trying to inflame things in Syria? And, why is this politician so connected with, the Ukrainian government? It's just, yeah, it's unfortunate, where I don't think it was like that back in the 60s to 70s. You did have some, shitty conservatives and whatnot, but typically folks could kind of smell them out to an extent.
Mhm.
So
Honestly, back in the 50s or 60s, I would be considered like a liberal.
that's the ironic
From my,
part, isn't it?
isn't that funny? But that's not what we're dealing with anymore, because that's liberal and conservative within the context of the Republican or the Republic. What am I trying to say? The representative republic that we have, or that we used to have, but now we're so far even from that. Like we're I think people, that's the thing that I guess bothers me the most about all this, is everybody's like, we're all about democracy. You're not really, though, because really when it comes down to it, I mean, the best way I would describe America is not even as communist. Like, yes, we have a lot of bad things that were associated with communism, but what I would consider it as is more a form of socialism, more akin to fascism, where we're much more in line with the corporations, where the government's much more in line with the corporations, and it kind of allows them some freedom as long as they toe the government line and play the games according to the ESG or the DEI or whatever. I see it more as fascism.
Just to ask, because I'm curious, we're 6 months away from the election. Okay, so this is perfect timing. It's looking like it's going to be Trump versus Biden, right? At this point,
which is fucking ridiculous.
It's insane, but that's where we're at, and it's frightening. Like, Biden could possibly be reelected,
easily.
But I'm going to ask you this, a hardline question. Who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to win, Trump or Biden in November?
Do you mean actually win by the number of people voting for them, or do you mean who's going to get elected?
Right.
Yeah, the end results. I mean, the end results.
The end results, I would. So Biden, it's two ways that I look at it. If Biden wins, quote unquote, it will cause something akin to a civil war. If Trump wins, it won't, because the people on the other side are too pussy to do anything about it, is really what it comes down to. But I don't think Trump is going to, I think Biden's going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance Biden will win. The only reason he might not is that they don't want to make it so obvious two elections in a row, right? They got to maybe play the game a long game of, well, we'll let this one be a little bit more fair and then prepare, because after Trump can't come back, right? And I mean, obviously Biden might not even be alive after this term, or even at any day. So
yeah,
I don't think he is. You might not have heard the first, when we were on Comicsgate Commandos number 2 or 3, I posed the theory that Joe Biden is actually just an animatronic. Like, if you were to cut the back of his neck right here, his skin flap would come off and you'd see that underneath he's like a cyborg skeleton type thing. I don't think he's a real person.
Well, he might as well be, because he's a puppet at this point, right? Yeah, he's
Yeah.
pretty much
Oh,
a
yeah.
zombie. But yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, I'm leaning towards the pessimism, which is that Biden will end up being the president again, and then it's going to be a complete shit show.
Yeah.
And then, I can't wait to say I told you so, though. To everyone I know, when things get really bad, I'll be like, well, I told you not to vote for him.
Yeah. Yeah. If we can survive all that, I mean, honestly, if like the power goes out for 5 days, people resort to cannibalism. So it's like, it's a very tenuous thing, civilization. And we have been brought to a point where like it could just take one tiny little push. And that's the scary part for me, is that a lot of my family members aren't really prepared for that. They really trust that, like government's always kind of worked, so it's going to continue to work. And, we've got the two parties and we just got to vote the right way and everything will work out just fine. And I don't like, if you're a Christian, then you understand that there's this thing called or man or disembodied soul called the devil. And his main goal is to fuck with things and to ruin things. He doesn't play by our rules. Like, he doesn't give a shit about our rules. So why do you think he cares when you say, they've corrupted the government? All we've got to do is vote the wrong people out. The devil doesn't care about your fucking rules about who you're going to vote into office. I mean, and maybe that's too religious of a perspective to have, but that's just that's how I feel. I just feel like the enemy does not play by the rules that we think that we expect everybody else to play by. And so it gets to a point where when you can see that the government is no longer run by the people who are elected and decisions are not made by the people, the masses, it comes to a point where it's like you have few options at your disposal. I'm not going to go any further on that. But yeah. Anyway, let's go to something light here. I'm going to show something. I saw this the other day.
BA, did you say you have to head out? Or?
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't. Okay. I wasn't even looking at the private stream. You got to go. Sorry. So let's bring up the campaign one more time here. Let me bring it up. You have time for that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Sorry. We were having such a great conversation. I wasn't even.
Oh, hell yeah. No, those
paying
are
attention.
definitely interesting topics, especially with what's coming up.
I'd love to talk to you more about your visit to Russia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
when we get a chance, because it's just a beautiful place, and I want to hear like if you've got pictures and stuff. I want to see those too.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. It's funny, you type in the exact thing and it just doesn't.
Yeah, I found my comics a bit tricky with the search function. I think I have better luck if I just search Creed for some reason.
That's what I did because it wasn't coming up originally. But here, let me scroll up here because I know that good old Mr. Self-Destruct put it in the chat.
All right, yeah.
Let me grab this here. Can I? No, I can't. Damn it. Okay, folks. While you're waiting for me to do that. Okay, so Fund My Comic is having some kind of issue right now. It's telling me that that it's like going over it for review. I don't know. I
That
saw that
happens every
earlier when I
once
was
in a
trying to
while.
look at your So I'm just gonna show the trailer here, and then we can talk about it a little bit. All right. So yeah, go ahead, BA. Tell us all about what's going on, and then tell us if you have anything new coming up, like any shows people should check out. And I'll put your your YouTube link in the chat as you talk.
Oh, cool, thanks. Yeah, so between Indiegogo and on my comic, we're like $100 away from 12K. So trying to get to 15K ideally, and then I'll be leaving it up until I do that full comic issue. So until the next campaign is up, and my kind of two things in the near term future, trying to get that comic issue off the ground, and then also hopefully audiobooks for book 1 and 2, and then add them to the existing campaign, for folks that don't have time to sit down and read kind of long form prose. And otherwise, stream wise, I'll be on Katie Did's channel for a little bit tonight, and then nothing kind of scheduled in the near future because I rarely get to stream. So when I get the chance to, I do it, but it's very random.
Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight, man. Everybody in the chat, check out. I put the link down there. So subscribe and get notifications to his YouTube channel. Through there, you can easily find the Fund My Comic. Are you on Indiegogo too, as well, or just Fund My
Yep,
Comic?
both.
Indiegogo too. So yeah, check it out, folks. Thanks again, BA, for coming on, dude. I really appreciate it. Great conversation. I hope to have you on again soon.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
having me. It
nice
was nice
meeting you,
meeting
man.
and talking to both you guys. Looking forward to
Likewise.
your comic, man. So
Thank you, sir. I hope your wife doesn't judge it too harshly for the Russian things that I put in there.
oh no, I'm sure she'll enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on again, man. Appreciate it.
For sure, man. You guys take care.
You too.
Take care, man.
God bless.
All right. Johnny Scab says, thanks, BA. Came on. Oh, here we go. He says, I prefer agnostics over atheists. Atheists, right? Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I'm not trying to shit on anybody who's not religious. I'm just saying it just seems to me that when religion leaves a government, it just kind of goes to shit. Great work. You know what? So I'm gonna do a couple things here. Let's see here. We're at 2:07. What are we? An hour and a half in. I got to take a piss break real quick and smoke a cig as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put on a little video here for people to watch. This is
Well, Patrick,
you have to go.
I'm actually about at the time I was gonna head out too.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
yeah, if you were gonna wrap up soon anyway, I guess the timing works out.
Well, then before we wrap up, let's wrap up. But then before we do, I just want to do one thing before we go, because I wanted to do this voiceover here, and then I'll let you go there. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I saw this on Twitter the other day. You know what? I'm just gonna. You know what? You're right. You got to go. So I'm going to bring up my campaign. Let's see here. You know what? Fuck it. Comicsgate Commandos, everybody. We're super professional. You see how professional we are? We've got everything already lined up so that there's no dead air time. There's no fucking around. Here we are doing our thing. Take a look at this little teaser here. All right, Carbon Heart. Thanks for staying, man. Thanks for coming on tonight. You are hereby promoted to Colonel Carbon Heart.
Oh, wow.
So you were a private. Colonel's high up. Like, that's above sergeant. It's above lieutenant. So
I like it.
You're right here, man. So thanks again, dude, for coming on. I really appreciate it, dude.
Oh, absolutely, dude. Yeah, it's always good chatting. You guys are good people. So
yeah,
good stuff, dude.
We'll do it next Saturday if you're down.
Absolutely, man. Have a great week.
You too. Have a good one, man. I'll see you.
Take care.
So now it's just you and me, Mr. Self-Destruct, and whoever else is still watching. It's time to go. It's been a good night. Good old Johnny's going to be on in about an hour, he says. Johnny says, I'm on an hour, lads, if you're still up. I'll be up, Johnny. And also, like, now I'm thinking, like, at a certain point, I'm going to do, like, a show where I pretend that Johnny's back in Comicsgate Commandos, and I just dress up as Johnny. I got to make my own mask, though, you know? I'm going to, like, nitpick every detail. I'm going to figure out every single detail of the mask and make a perfect replica. You guys won't be able to tell the difference, except for my background. Anyway, folks, thanks again for joining Comicsgate Commandos. We're going to be doing this every Saturday. Every single Saturday. So we hope to see you next time. Anyway, have a good one, folks.